Welcome to Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat, a podcast for all you wine lovers who, if you're like me, just cannot get enough of the good stuff. I'm Yanina Dore, your host, brand ambassador, wine educator, and sommelier. So stick with me as we dive deeper into this ever-evolving, wonderful world of wine. And wherever you are listening to this, cheers to you. Hello, wine friends, and welcome back to another episode. So today I'm talking with a CMS Advanced Sommelier, Beatrice Bessi, who is head som at the 5-star luxury boutique hotel Chiltern Firehouse in London. Now, she's currently working towards her Master Sommelier qualification, but holds the WSET diploma, is a WSET educator, and judges for the Decanter World Wine Awards. This year, she was the winner of the International Wine and Spirits Competition's Emerging Talent in Wine Hospitality Award. So with her 20 years of experience in the hospitality industry, I'm finding out more about the Grands Jours de Bourgogne, a wine event that completely changed Beatrice's trajectory entirely to wine, finding out what it's like to work at the unique and prestigious private members wine club, 67 Pall Mall, and especially alongside the likes of Master Sommelier Ronan Saburn. We are talking about the challenges of being a sommelier, to the joys of recommending hidden gems on wine lists, and focusing on the wines of Sicily this episode. So you'll find out why we think Cerasuolo di Vittoria should be this year's summer sipper. We'll be talking about Sicily's native grapes like Nerello Mascalese and Nero, the volcanic soils of Mount Etna, talking about the natural wine scene over there, and the incredible sweet wine called Passito di Pantelleria, and, well, so much more. So just pour yourself a glass of wine, unwind, and enjoy. Okay, so I really want to dive straight in. You mentioned to me about this incredible wine trip that you did from Italy, where you are from originally, all the way, I think, in a car to Burgundy, and with a 5-year-old daughter, right? So can you, what was the motivation here?
Oh God. So I was still restaurant manager of a 1 Michelin star restaurant in Italy, definitely not in my region. I was living in Padua at that moment, and I had a 5 years old daughter at that moment. And I was definitely started to feel suffocated by my role, in a way that the wine was probably, it's there where I started to realize I wanted to pursue just that part of the industry after 18 years doing other jobs and other roles in hospitality. And so it was the first time I could manage to be away for a few days, obviously thinking about spending that amount of money. And after I separated from her father, so it was the first time where, you know, I have a position, I have a nice salary. It's hard, but I'm working it out. So let's do this. So I always loved Burgundy. Was definitely probably the first region that I fell in love with after Barolo, Piedmont. So that are probably the two regions that made me jump. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, you come up on your phone and you see there is this amazing open kind of affair that is called Grands Jours de Bourgogne, is happening every pair year. So not every year. And I was like, you know what? I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go.
Oh, really? So you had no idea, you just knew there was several days of this kind of wine event?
It was my first time driving by myself for a wine event outside, the canonic one. Let's say, I would just spend my day off few time with the company I was working with and do like some short trips of one day to Amarone. And 2 years before I got hired in the company I was working as a restaurant manager, I did a master in wine and marketing management in Italy, probably the highest in Italy at that stage. And so we did a lot of course, trips and deep studying about wine. But again, that was a kind of a more university process. But that was the first time where I've done it by myself, So thinking about taking your car, I had a brand new car, didn't last very long because after 7 months I was in London. So it was a kind of a very short, So took my car. I didn't even know Google Maps, thanks God, existed still there. And I drove through the Mont Blanc. That was a nightmare.
Wow. Yeah.
You can go only like, I think 25 or 30 kilometers per hour, only one by one queuing. And it's an excruciating queuing. Like I think I queued going in there. So crossing to France towards after Burgundy, I think I queued 8 hours doing this 25, 30 kilometer per hour. Obviously I slept on the highway. That is definitely not the best thing to do. And coming back after those 5 days of Grands Jours de Bourgogne, I probably drove even longer. I remember the queue was crazy in the Mont Blanc. So I think I drove back to my house, I think in total 26 hours, something like that.
Okay. The big question is, was it worth it going to this Grand Jour?
I mean, I remember, totally by myself, not knowing French, knowing English, but, again, 10 years ago now, I remember I started to Google where I could find the Romanee Conti Vineyard, classic thing, probably that ever Burgundy lover would do in the first time. And I remember I started to cry when I finally found the spot.
When you go to the Romanee Conti Vineyard, for anyone listening, we've done episodes talking about this is the iconic wine of Burgundy. Is it literally kind of a little walled vineyard that you can just stand in front of?
Yeah, you just cross like 2 free streets. You have few houses there. Coming again from, I'm not traveling right now with the knowledge I have now. So still I can get surprised. And that's the beauty of the wine world. But back in time, my knowledge and my self-awareness of the wine industry and the wine world and the regions for sure was much, much, much rudimental. So, going in there, analyze, actually, I found it, analyze, actually, I am in the right place. And I did it by myself after whatever I've been through with a single, with a child and whatever, money-wise, very tight and so on. And I realized I was actually there and I started to cry. And probably that's one of the moments where I realized that what I wanted to do in my life, the sense of achievement and also the sense of passion that I never had before. I mean, I did have, I'm working in hospitality since 25 or 6 years now. So quite a lot of time.
A while.
Yeah, I don't know. Definitely started illegally. Yeah, I mean, that's how you do in Italy. You start, you have a bit of a pocket money situation, but I never left. And, definitely I had passion, but now that I'm, again, seeing backwards all the things that I've done, definitely not the same level as passion I have for wine. So
I love that it was such an inspiring moment. And obviously it was so inspiring. So it's called the Grands Jours de Bourgogne, right? Is it a 5-day event?
I think, yeah, if I remember right. So basically you go around by yourself. Obviously you have probably you have quite a lot of sommeliers going there, but it's more about a wine buyer situation where, you come in, you take your wines, you can buy them, you bring them home or in your restaurant or whatever. It was basically every day was focused mainly in 1 or 2 villages. So for example, one day you could have Gevrey-Chambertin. So you would go there and you would have all the people, all the producers showing. And at the same day, you might have had like Nuit Saint-Georges. Moving on, day after, you have Vin Romanée with, I don't know, and you have certain events, organized from the Association of the Burgundy Wines. And so the first day was always Chablis. I remember again, I was like planning my life. Yeah, I'm coming here. Don't worry, blah, 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 blah. Again, with the queuing, and I didn't consider because I never did by myself. I arrived like at 2 p.m. instead of 8 a.m. and I was in more than halfway done the Chablis tasting. But I remember like, I'm here, I can do
it. You're here. And Chablis is just that little bit further than the rest of Burgundy. So
yeah, the first day, now that I'm thinking through it, the first day was Chablis and after. So yeah, it was a 5-day process where every day you have 2 or 2 villages and all the tastings around those villages. So the expressions of those communes.
That's beautiful. Okay, so you cried, you felt the passion, you knew wine is now going to be your life. And so obviously you sold your brand new car. got your daughter, and you came along to London and started working at 67 Pall Mall, which is a very, very good start into the wine world in England, right?
Yeah.
Well done.
I mean, I did it again a bit of in a weird way. Basically, the connection came from actually where I used to work. So in Padova, where I was working in a one Michelin star restaurant, I had a guy that used to work for Ronan. So he came definitely younger than me, but he came back from London, and being from that area, he came back and he wanted to work in that company, that he knew very well because they own a free Michelin star. They are in part of the 50 best restaurant and so on. So I was working in one of those restaurants. So, we started to talk, and this guy started to mention Ronan Saber in Italy, no clue whatsoever, especially
okay.
on my stage back in time, on my level, no clue whatsoever. And Court of Master Sommelier comes up in the discussion. Yeah, I've done this exam. I did the certified, blah, 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 blah. It's very hard. And I'm like, So basically, this guy gave me the proof I needed that Italy was not enough. The Italian reality was not enough for me, and I wanted to know more. And so basically, I kept listening to this conversation that sometimes would happen with me. Sometimes this guy would talk, with other colleagues of ours. And I tried to remember Ronan Saber's name, and I Googled it, and I found it, and I found him on Facebook, and I started to follow him. And that would probably be like in February or January or March, something around that time in 2016, probably a bit earlier, January or something. And I saw that it was opening at that moment I think it was actually before, because if they opened in December 2015, probably I was following him just a bit earlier than that. I remember the first stages, the first masterclass they did as a soft opening moment.
So, okay, I didn't realize. I didn't know. So you came very soon after 67 Pall Mall opened?
Yes, I joined them
wow.
in May 16. So I was the first one to be hired after the kind of the first group of sommelier. So they were in 7 sommeliers, and me and another girl, we got hired in the same month. And yes, it was May. So I started to talk with Ronan in March, probably through Facebook. That led me to speak with Terry Candelis, the head sommelier of 67 at that time. And I was like, I'm going, and that's what I did. So they offered me the position, and that was probably end of March. And I moved there half of May. So in 1 month and a half, I have to close everything. Obviously, I didn't bring my daughter with me at that stage. So I moved by myself. So my daughter moved back with my mom in my town. And I'm here after 8 years.
Wow. So now you've mentioned 2 names, Ronan's and Terry's, and both of them are incredible master sommeliers. So is there something specific that sticks in your mind that you learned from them? Something they ever told you, something they showed you?
I mean, definitely, I remember the first month, and probably a bit more than the first month, coming in a place like this where you have this river of knowledge, if it makes sense, like constant conversation, very in depth about producers, about vintages, about every single region that I never experienced in Italy. And, probably you might have some, but it's not really easy to have perspective, It doesn't make any sense to taste one bottle of Chateau Margaux if that's the only one that you have. It doesn't give you any idea of the quality of the vintage. And that's what I was lacking, and I was dreaming to receive in Italy, and it was not possible. So it was definitely like at that stage I had also Gareth Ferreira, that was our assistant head sommelier. He's the beverage director now at Core. He's there since he left 67. So, I had amazing sommeliers doing this all day constantly. And it was such a natural thing for them to do, talking no stop about everything, about vintages, about producers. And I was like, oh my God, I don't understand anything, but I'm going to absorb everything I can. I'm going to take notes. I was taking notes every day. I remember, obviously, my English was not at the level it is now. So I was also taking notes, every single word I wouldn't understand. I was writing it down and, do research at home. It was a very intense time. I must admit that probably I wouldn't be able to do it if my daughter was with me, obviously. It took me probably 1 year to eventually getting ready to the stage to move her with me. So I spent the first year just, focusing, understanding, working and organizing crazy events, leading crazy events, helping everyone. And just, that's coming from one of my colleagues from 67, from Roberto, just shut up and work. And that's what we did,
Kind of good advice sometimes. So, but you said like about the events, and that's something that 67 Pall Mall is amazing at, or they're putting on tastings. You mentioned, what's the point? Well, there's always a point in drinking a Chateau Margaux, but in terms of understanding it and learning, what is the point in having one tasting of a vintage of Chateau Margaux without doing a vertical, without understanding it? Was that something that you were able to do?
That's the power of 67,
Wow,
that's,
yeah.
I mean, as I said, entering 67 on the stage, with quite a nice crowd of senior sommeliers well known in the world and in London, I definitely started to work closely with the events. And at some point after, I don't remember how much, but I think around 1 year, I took over the event, 1 year and a half, I think. I took over the event. So I was the event sommelier for all the company. Back in time, we had obviously only London. So I was focused on London. And it was quite a big machine, thinking about how much glassware we would use every day, receiving wines,
The glasses are always Zalto, right?
Yes.
Only Zalto.
Yeah, up to 1,600 glasses per one event. When we were doing the Judgment of London, so we would have, for example, Jancis Robinson coming and doing blind tasting with the champagne versus English sparkling. That was the amount of glasses we would have to set up and pour wines on. So in one room, in one event, and after. Sometimes we would have an event prior that event. So we would have to clean, reset, making sure that everything was okay. And decanting wine, double decanting, obviously with a lot of requests. And also thinking about how 67 Pall Mall was back in time, we had also 2 other PDR, private dining room events. So I could have 3 rooms at the same time to deal with. So yeah, it was...
That's a challenge. Learning curve.
Yeah.
Okay. How is it now, though? You are head sommelier at Chiltern Firehouse. What's it like working there? What do you get from working in this restaurant?
I mean, after 67, considering I just achieved back in time in 19, I just achieved the advanced court of master sommelier. So that was my stage at the moment. And, I started to feel I wanted to look for the next step. I wanted to focus on understanding how to buy wines, how to learn this kind of situation, the wine buying side of things. And Chiltern Firehouse definitely gave me all the opportunity to understand how to buy wines, how to deal with the suppliers, to be the front woman on doing these kind of things. So it was definitely an important step. It is definitely an important step. And also the scary thing of dealing with a wine list by yourself. I didn't have anyone back me up. I had to think about my own things. How do I want to do it? What's my idea? What do I think about wine? And am I doing the right way, the wrong way? So definitely I had to think. It's a constant decision that you take every day. In my case, I'm changing the wine list every 15 days. So you think about, am I doing the right things? Am I doing what our guest wants? What do we need? Is it anything that needs to be replaced? So yeah, that was definitely the process I wanted to learn moving in a place like Chiltern Firehouse.
So now you're changing the wine list every 15 days, just, keep yourself busy. And with all of the events and all of the tastings at 67 Pall Mall, one of the wonderful joys of being a sommelier is you get to taste a lot of fabulous wines. So for everybody listening, tell us, is there one wine that has just blown you away, or just something with its story and its flavor that just you always think of?
Oh, la la. Very hard, I'm very lucky to have a lot of them, but probably the less known appellation at this moment are the ones that, are exciting me. So think about, for example, I don't know, everybody wants Barolo and Barbaresco, right? We all know that it's a big passion of mine, but coming from less known appellations. So a Langhe Nebbiolo, a Carema, or a Gattinara, or a Gemme, or a Bocca, those are the ones that now, you have a different price point, you have amazing quality. And same from, I mean, it's basically all the regions of Italy, you know where to go, but at the same time, you have always these minor appellations or these less known, I wouldn't call them minor, but less
Yeah.
known for sure, where you can see, oh wow, I have the same quality.
Well, you find the value though.
Exactly. You have the same quality, and at the same time, you have incredible surprises there. Carema is one of my favorite. Yeah.
Okay, so you said about finding like the value. I guess that's what surprises you rather than one of the top wines, which you expect to be amazing. Has there been, and it could be a wine or it could be an area where you just love bringing to your guests when they give you full flexibility and they just say, we just want something really affordable, but you want to knock their socks off?
Not really. I really don't like that as approach. I'm a bit of a weird one. I mean, for example, I don't like to be put in a box. I never liked it really. So let's say in a way, for example, I'm just going to give you an example to make you understand what I meant. I'm Italian, and the first question is, oh, why you don't suggest me an Italian wine? I'm like, no, I don't want, I mean, I do, I can, but it's not the only thing I know of. So it's definitely a one-to-one conversation,
Right,
and one-to-one feeling first. So and I like to experiment and to travel around my wine list. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense. I could have just Barolo and Barbaresco or Pinot Noir, but I'm not making the wine list for myself. So I like first to understand, the feeling of the guests of the table. Everybody wants to have an oaky shard. Good for you. Fair enough. You wanna have a Burgundy? We have 3 pages of Burgundy without any problem. Every price point, every appellation. Good. I mean, as I said, Burgundy is a big passion of mine, but you have alternative varieties and alternative styles that they make exciting full body white as other, classic ones. But if you're willing to choose something else, why don't we have an amazing Pinot Bianco Sauvignon blend made in oak? Would you like to do that? Why not? Yeah. Are we having a rich style? Yes, it is a rich style. Blah, 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 blah. And that's where, and I'm always saying, if you don't like it, I'm going to drink it. Don't worry about it.
That's exactly was my technique when I was a sommelier. Because if I was taking them, for instance, I used to work for a Chilean winery, and that happened because I used to, as a sommelier, pull out a lot of Chilean wines instead of, for instance, the person wanting a Shiraz or a Bordeaux, something from France. And they used to always be like, oh, I don't know if I want to go Chile. And I'd be like, it's fine, because if it's opened, I'll take it back and it will go, I will consume it. It will get you something else. Do you have a tip for a consumer to help them navigate a wine list?
It's very scary, to be honest, to choose wine lists. And I can see sometimes the fear, in their eyes is, oh my God, I need to choose a wine. I don't have any clue whatsoever. Can be very scary. And that's the first thing I said to them. Don't worry, I'm here to help you out. Definitely, I would say, look to a person that wants to make you feel comfortable and to make you feel, that you can trust them. So trying to find that relationship trust. Coming from my experience, I would say, look to producers that are well known, and maybe look for less pricey appellations. And, it's very hard, but try to find at least a bit of an idea of, are you looking for a light wine or for a full body wine? Are you looking for which price point are you willing to spend? And that's probably the first approach. And if you have a wine that you like, try to remember which wine it was. Usually when they don't know what to say, I'm asking, so usually what wine do you drink? And that helps a lot, because coming from my knowledge, the idea would be that I would be able to help you out with whichever wine you're telling me. So, I had this producer, blah, 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 blah. I had this great variety, blah, 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 blah. So, okay, so I don't have that. Maybe I do, but if I don't have that. But I would say those are the similar ones. So those are the similar one in the same country, or those are the similar one in other countries. Or maybe let's say, I don't mind, I want to stay in Italy, but I want to spend that amount of money. Okay, so I can give you that. So kind of my brain always goes in boxes. I'm opening this kind of boxes. So that's what my brain does when I have conversation with guests. So I would say from their perspective, think about if you could remember some wines that you like, you're gonna help the sommelier to establish a conversation with you and ask you a few questions, and don't feel scared, because the sommelier, people that are doing this as a passion, as a job, but a passion, they're there to help you out. They want to be there for you. They want to be there for you to have an amazing experience. So there is no judgment at all. There is no thinking in my head, oh my God, she doesn't know nothing about wine. That's not the point at all of the conversation.
That's what you are there for. That is what the sommelier is there for, right?
Absolutely. We are there for that reason. We are there to make people happy. That's the first and the only goal for us.
So now I'm going to role play and pretend I'm the customer, and I'm going to say, oh, I've been hearing all about Sicilian wines because, well, you're not just a sommelier, you have your WSET educator as well. So I asked you what regions that you love talking about. You did mention Piemonte, but I just said, already done that recently, so I won't let you. But the next region you mentioned to me was Sicily. So I'm the customer, and you've got a lovely selection of wines from all over the island. Where do I start? I want to taste a famous indigenous grape variety. What should I try? Over to you.
All right. So if I have to choose a white, probably I would either do Chiqui Grillo coming from the Marsala area.
Okay, yeah, Grillo. Mm-hmm.
Discovering a grape that nobody really knew was actually the top grape for Marsala. And now they do amazing sparkling wines out of Grillo and amazing white wines out of Grillo. You can have an easier kind of approach, a simpler kind of style, but you have always this kind of a nutty walnut feeling to it. Grillo is a grape variety that is kind of easily prone to oxidation, and it's not a bad thing. It gives this kind of a richness and nuttiness to the wine, even in a kind of a lighter stage, and down to big and rich Grillo styles. And I think there are quite few producers that they are focusing on Grillo as a variety. So going probably down to other area of Sicily, I would probably do Catarato, another Catarato coming from the Mount Etna. Yeah.
Catarato in comparison. So Grillo's quite a hardy variety. And actually, I think, as I mentioned to you, I wonder, I've been reading about maybe it's the focus grape for climate change, because it might actually be able to handle all these drought issues. But Catarato, for you, I know this is a bit of a fresh wine with like a citrusy floral tones, but I don't know that grape variety very well. How would you said that there's a nuttiness with Grillo. Is the other one, Catarato, is fresher, right?
I would say, yeah, probably you have this kind of a brighter acidity. And also think about that every grape variety is just a person, think about, this is a grape variety, is like a person, is wearing a dress because is in an area. So think about, coming from the area of the south of Italy or Etna, you have this bright acidity, and also driven from the terroir, if you want to say it in French, but driven from the soil, driven from the environment. And you have this always like hint of salinity, this kind of a almost iodine. I mean, I don't want to be super crazy on terms, but this kind of a driven salinity to it. And it's a combination for sure of the grape variety that has a nice floral, almost delicate. It's not a bad thing, being delicate, like this kind of a shy grape variety, but there was this amazing salinity as a backbone. And so that's how I would split them.
And that's interesting. I wonder what your opinion is, because of all of the white grape varieties, no matter which one it is and where it's growing, if I had to categorize the whites, again, freshness, you said saline, and kind of there is that mineral note. across the board, whether it is a slightly more aromatic grape variety or maybe a greener citrusy style. Would you agree that's fair?
In you mean in general as a grape
In general,
varieties, or?
if you just said, yeah, like the white of Sicily. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, probably it is a bit the power of Italy in general, where the acidity and the minerality are the driven power force of Italian wines. That's one of our most important characteristics. We sit on majority of the wines that we do. We sit on mountainous soils and volcanic soils and chalky white soils. So this, of course, it's driving our personality if you think about the overall picture of Italian wine. So it's definitely a focus point for all the wines. But Sicily, for sure, you have this driven minerality, thinking about we are in an island, thinking about all the currents, that are landing on the island, coming from the seaside, thinking about the soils, thinking about the monstrous activity of Balkan. You have Etna is the highest volcan of Europe, but it's not the only one that you have in all the area. Has always been kind of an active, at the moment dormant.
Well, when I was there, I've been to Mount Etna and it was puffing away. It was smoking and it was doing its thing. Thankfully, nothing more than that. But yeah, it's incredible.
So all the era, think about, another important fact of studying and being passionate about wine. It's also the cross knowledge. You study more about biology and geology than you ever been. You know all about the plaques, all that area, of course, has been quite active in the past about volcanic activity because of all the situation of the plugs, down to the ocean and the seasides and the Mediterranean Sea. So obviously those impacted our geography, down to Italy, and impacted all the planet. So knowing those kind of factors, also you get information about the soil, you get information about the natural features, and you get information about how the wine might taste. It's all a combination of different things, and it's so fascinating because you need to consider all these aspects.
It's so true. I hated geography in school and then I got into wine. And now regions, places, and like the climate, I can come up with random stuff. And people are like, how do you know about that?
I hated it, and now I'm like, I cannot stay without it, and after, I mean, I always liked to travel. Since I was a child, I was always like, I'm gonna leave this town, I'm gonna go somewhere else, I'm gonna live in America, I'm gonna do that. Since I was probably 7 years old, I had a very clear idea what I wanted to be. I supposed to be a computer science engineer, traveling for that.
Interesting.
And I'm graduated and everything.
Well, I'm glad you came into the world of wine. Thank you.
Yeah, but definitely traveling, it's a big important thing, and connected with all these factors, it's all related. History, geology, everything is related.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now I have to ask you about Caricante. So Caricante, for me, we were talking about the minerality. In my head, I've always felt that is the great variety of Sicily to show the crushed rocks, the real salinity, and this kind of slight herbiness with that zippy acidity. I don't know. That's the one. It was interesting that you've gone with Grillo, which I think might be the future. I don't know. Whereas, I don't know, Caricante for me has always been the one in my head. What are your thoughts on that great variety?
I think Caricante has been the great variety that broken the international, perspective about white from Sicily. Probably it was much easier to start with the Etna Rosso, with the red wines from Etna, and obviously we did have a lot of history about Nero d'Avola exported everywhere and so on. So probably the door was already open for the red side of it, but for the whites were definitely less known. And again, back in time, a lot of bulk wines and production and so on. And the quality definitely has been increased massively. And Caricante led the way. So because of these characteristics, that you could have, again, think about alternatives. We all like to, I mean, now, especially in the last years, we all trying to tune down the alcohol. The trends are definitely looking to have less alcoholic wine, and it's getting harder and harder by the minute because of climate change and because of also all the winemaking that we always pursued, thinking about the 90s, then 80s, and probably after, all the judging and wine critics era as well. So thinking about the Caricante was probably the answer to having an opportunity to show a wine with bright acidity, with minerality that wasn't a canonic international grape variety. So yeah, that was the answer. And after that, all the other varieties followed suit in a way, because Sicily got acclaimed as a quality region, and the other ones were given also the opportunity to be shown.
So I suppose, and I guess that is why. So Caricante, just for anybody who isn't aware, I think the majority does grow on Mount Etna. So just like you were saying, it was the, Etna Reds that started it. So it made sense to follow what's the white that grows there. Do you still feel very much the heart of the winemaking on Sicily is around Etna and Etna DOC?
I mean, there is definitely a lot of focus on Etna. It's probably the most upcoming area after Piedmont and Tuscany, Probably, I mean, there is a bit of a gossiping around that Etna will be the next area for MGA, as they did in Barolo and Barbaresco.
MGA?
Yes, so in Barolo and Barbaresco, they've been in Piedmont mainly, but we started to recognize singularities. In Italy, unfortunately, it's not always down to single vineyards. It's like the same concept as Burgundy, that you have single vineyard and after you have climat. So this kind of a parcellaire, as they say in French. In Italy, we do have the same fragmentation. Recognizing historical sites has always been confusing for the Italian wine history, where the books would say something, but the grandfather of the grandfather would say something else, and the plot wouldn't match with the actually map of the area. Of course, that's the history of Italy. You have a lot of history, but it's not really, sometimes hasn't been passed through the generation, properly. Probably we didn't think of it in that way. It is our power, the story and the history is one of our power. And so in Etna, there is a lot of talk about, singular expressions, and they're not really single vineyard as we think about in the rest of the world, are called contradas in the Etna areas. So you have it's kind of an hybrid between hamlet and village. So there is a lot of talk about potentially pushing forward Etna for having a kind of an MGA. So MGA stands for additional geographical mentions. And they kind of aligned them with single vineyards that were historically acclaimed in Barolo and Barbaresco, for example. Tuscany is following suit. Again, single areas and hamlets. And Etna might be the next one. I think it's the area where you have the most recognition at this stage to do that.
And I mean, I love the wines. This is on volcanic
Absolutely
soils. There's the smokiness, the minerality. We keep saying the word. So actually, okay, red, Nerello Mascalese, this incredibly elegant grape. So how would you describe this grape? I mean, it's very often blended with Nerello Cappuccino as well. So you don't always get
cappuccino. Yeah, I mean, not really easy to find blend. I think you have this kind of a 5% sometimes. I mean, originally when we started to study about Italian wine, so I'm talking about for myself, probably 20 years ago, 15 plus. You would always read the book, let's say Nerello Mascalese is the elegant one, is the worthy to be planted only for quality wine, and Nerello Cappuccino. I probably want to have breakfast again.
Are you thirsty?
Yeah, like what? Nerello Cappuccio, it's the more rustic one. It's the more like a simple one. I agree and not agree completely. I think, again, it's down to really, what has been not done properly in every country in the world. Of course, we all want to, every winery has a business plan, and all of them, they want to try to make money and survive and have a successful business plan. So it's always to be considered. But at the same time, popping up on trends and what the market needed and wanted sometimes has been not really great for the grape variety themselves. So, as there are a million of cases where, we lost grape variety because just they were not up to the standard of the market on that time, of the mass production, of the higher quality, of lower yields, whatever was the trend at that stage.
At that time.
Yeah, so Nerello Cappuccio definitely has suffered a bit of it because of it. And also, again, I think we do make wine since a lot of centuries in Italy, but really focusing on the quality and understanding our culture and understanding our country. It's not a lot of time, unfortunately, if you compare it to other country of the...
No, for sure.
Exactly. So there is a bit of...
Italy was so fragmented.
Yes, absolutely. We are as a culture. And so it's very hard to wrap up all the information, because you don't have really sources, that have been left behind. And so, probably there is a mixture of, it might be true. It might be that it's an easier grape variety, that is a more fruit-driven style of grape variety, but it's rustic. Why? Because has been not maybe taken care of properly. Yeah, definitely Nerello Mascalese is the king. I would say queen.
Yes.
Is the queen.
Yeah, because of the yes.
Is the queen, of the area. But I wouldn't discard it automatically Nerello Cappuccio as not able to show personality. I think always, when you have partners in blend, you have always this kind of a three-dimensionality that you can gain from having another grape variety. So I would say that there is still a lot to be done for me for Nerello Cappuccio. But I would say Nerello Mascalese is at the moment the leading partner.
So obviously my role play, I forgot that I was role playing. So I'm going back to I'm a customer and, they're lovely white grape varieties that you've mentioned, but actually I've decided I want red, and Nerello Mascalese seems maybe a little bit too elegant and fresh. I think I want something a little bit rounder and juicier and a bit bolder. What red grape variety from Sicily would you recommend me?
Oh la la. I mean... It's a big of a leap, but probably I would do some beautiful expressions of Nero d'Avola,
There we go. I wasn't sure if you were, I was like, that's what I was leading you in for. And I wasn't sure if you were going to take it.
It's one of the other varieties that has been massively destroyed with bulk production and low quality level, but it's not true. The beauty of this grape variety, the expression that you can get from this grape variety, again, you need to think about the environment. You need to think about how you planted it, how you're taking care of it. You want to only thinking about high quality vines and so on, and an environment and winemaking and viticulture. But sometimes Nero d'Avola is beautiful. So you just go a bit down in the south of Sicily, around Vittoria and Ragusa and Noto, these kind of areas, and you have beautiful expression of Nero d'Avolas that can be as kind of this granitic minerality to it. They can have this beauty, juiciness at the same time. They're not simple wine. You can chill them a bit. You can decant them also. And there are certain producers that they have in million of expression on this grape variety in the same winery. So, there is a lot to be chosen there, to be honest.
Totally. I mean, it's really difficult to say, what does it taste like? But I've always said to people, again, tell me if you have a different interpretation. But I'm like, if you like a nice northern Rhone, so, a cooler climate Syrah, because it has the body, it has that kind of spiciness to it. It can be quite juicy. Maybe like if a northern Rhone Syrah had a baby with Merlot, I don't know.
It's a mixture of, now I'm trying to think about it now, but it has the same juiciness of Valpolicella. So this kind of a cherry-like, this kind of a Amarena cherry-like. So this kind of a very cherry focus. And also, as you said, the spiciness of Rhone, of a Syrah grape variety, but coming from a cold climate.
Yeah, rather than hot. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. And you have also this granitic, dusty sometimes, but in a very pleasant way, finish that, it's balancing everything out.
Do you know, honestly, I love when I talk about grape varieties that I haven't, it's not my everyday drinking wine. I'm like, oh, I love this. But talking about love this, what about Cerasuolo di
Oh, I love
Vittoria?
it. I love it.
Oh,
I love it.
right.
Just give me one and now I would drink it.
So my question to you, is this the 2024 summer sipper? Is this something that we want to try and push everyone listening to just have slightly chilled?
I agree with that. We all know rosé that, it comes from a visual demand, we're talking about the pale and all these kind of things. We're talking about a successful marketing decision. We're talking about, but unfortunately nowadays the perception is that darker color leads to sweeter profile. That's not actually completely disconnected to it. So it's actually not true. So because of it, probably Italian and Spanish rosés suffered a bit because of this modern perception. But Cerasuolo di Vittoria, rosé, wow.
Okay. So no, I didn't know that they did rosé. I thought they only did, well, I suppose, unless we're having this conversation about where does a dark rosé and a pale red begin?
Yeah, it is. Honestly, I would use it for both way, chilling a bit.
Really?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, interpret it as a very pale red, but has this, again, this cherry juice or cranberry juice color that for me, you chill it and you have a bit more personality. You can drink it as a red, you can drink it as a rosé. Why not?
And we should point out for anybody listening, what is this? Well, this is a blend of Nero d'Avola, which we just talked about, but with Frappato, which is just yummy.
Yeah, another crazy variety. Yeah, that has this Frappato as a single variety has usually a tinge of orange to it. It gets quite pale as well in color, has this kind of a pomegranate color to it. But yeah, it's definitely another variety that it can lead to very juicy, very light colors with, again, a quite nice savory feeling. And also is very well suited for a lot of natural amphora ceramic winemaking where, it likes to be in oxidative environments and it gets that proper orange tinge to it. So it's a very versatile grape variety as well. Yeah.
Because for me, I have had, when I've been on the island of Sicily, I drank quite a bit of Frappato on its own. And I just loved the lovely, light, cherry, red wine that it was. But I haven't had it in this expression of either like slightly more oxidative or I guess that whole, the natural wine element, which actually, what are your feelings there? Because there are so many famous wines in Sicily that are that natural wine, like Frank Cornelison. Oh my God.
Yeah, I would say, coming from Italy, it's a pretty easy conversation for us. Let's say that in Italy, before I moved to London, in Italy, natural wine, it's a very big thing. In every top restaurant, you have a big part of the wine list represented with natural wines.
That's interesting. Okay.
And Sicily definitely has been one of the leaders for natural wines. Again, I think it's all down to the beginning of when the shift in reputation of Sicilian wine changed, where you had probably through these winemakers that they led the way with natural wines, they made the consumer discovering the Sicilian quality, if makes sense. Through the discovery of natural wines, 10, 15 years ago, the first top producers, coming out very, you could have a Sicilian Frappato or a Sicilian white with nothing added, made in amphora, blah, 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 blah. You could have that even in the north of Italy, where I am from, that it was kind of a big thing, It kind of made the consumer discovering the Sicilian quality. There is definitely a lot of natural movement in Sicily. It's very easy I'm not saying it's very easy. It's easier in a climate where you have less humidity in a way. You have a warmer climate with a lot of wind that makes the land drier and you have less probably disease pressure. So it's easier. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier to have a more natural movement where the land is helping you. the climate is helping you. Of course, I mean, we have natural wine also in Friuli, Venezia Giulia, that you have completely different climates. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but you have different challenges for sure.
It probably motivates them. Yeah.
Yeah. And also back in time would make sense. I mean, Frappato back in time when I started to work in hospitality was only natural. I wouldn't taste it in a more classic way at all. That's the only way you would find Frappato in the north, especially from the two top producers leading the way in natural wines. And after now, you find again, more easy style, more classical style. Again, natural, it's not a sign of quality, but it's down to the consumer and the sommelier and the wine person to taste, understand that beyond natural wine, it is also a quality wine. So it's very important to check for both.
And I think, to be honest, anyway, if people want to try one Sicilian wine and also natural, it is very likely that they will find, as I mentioned, a Frank Cornelissen or Kos or Chipinti. So they're great names to look out for. Actually, one thing we have to say for everybody listening, both of us love Cerasuolo di Vittoria. It is the only DOCG. It is the only one on the Sicilian island.
Yeah, how crazy is that? That's what makes Italian wine sometimes, unfortunately, a bit confusing because, I mean, you can find Barolo DOCGs for completely different price point. You can find a Barolo DOCG, unfortunately, bottled in the supermarket or on the highway, and after you don't have any other DOCGs in Sicily, and you're like wondering why. It's down to, unfortunately, you need, when you want to claim for an appellation, is a lot of paperwork, is a lot of, follow up thing. When you have so much, paperwork, you need to have a consortium behind, an association of producer or or a collective. Probably, I would say in Sicily, the collective has been missing back in time. We're talking about, Marsala was one of the first DOCs, but that's it, really. Marsala is probably one of the oldest wine made in Italy, that has been continuously made.
Is it coming back?
I mean, I love Marsala. I always loved it, and it's an amazing wine. Again, probably the way we rediscovering Marsala, it's, as I said before, via the Grillo. So via tasting dry style of Grillo, that you actually making the connection back to Marsala and, oh, I like Grillo, so let's have amazing Marsalas. And honestly, some Marsalas are wonderful wines to be paired with food. So with savory food, absolutely agree with that. You can have a dry one and you can have a sweet one. So yes.
That is true. And actually, talking of sweet, let's just maybe slowly sum up Sicily with Passito di Pantelleria. Delicious, and probably a sweet wine that most people don't know about or haven't tried,
It's very hard. It's such a small island. It's the farthest island of the Italian country. You are more close to the African continent than to Italy itself. And it takes a bit of time to reach it and so on. The transportations, it's harder. Think about all these kind of factors. It's very small island, just few producers there. And think about you are in UK, okay? You are a sommelier UK. You can taste Sauterne every day. You can taste probably Vouvray, Moyo every day. You can taste Tokai every day. You can taste Vin de Constance even more than every day. How hard it is to compete within this sweet wine category for such a small reality as Passito di Pantelleria. How many producers can you taste? How many bottles can you receive? I remember we used to have one of the most important, expressions of Passito di Pantelleria in '67, and I remember that we had some bottles of older vintages. I remember it was a 2009. That for me, coming from Italy, was totally normal. That's what we would have in every single restaurant, a nice Passito di Pantelleria. And I remember when one of my colleague opened it and he was like, okay, let's see, we have it by the glass. Let's do it. I never tried it, but, the competition is strong, as I said. And after, I remember his face when he opened it and he was like, wow, what a wine, what an incredible wine. And the fragmentation of our culture of, it makes everything harder, let's say, to find representation, to find community, the community brings everything, up front. So, but these wines are there. These wines are incredible wines. And again, down to small quantities, but they are available and they are beautiful wines.
I don't suppose the wine that you opened up was the Donna Fulgata wine.
Of course it was.
Okay. So for anybody listening,
Ben Rier. Yeah, Ben Rier. I mean, has been awarded internationally. I'm not the only one saying that this is a good wine, but Ben Rier has been probably the most famous wine for many years about Donna Fulgata, and probably the one that drove the reputation back up again of all the winery, And it's the one that people wants to collect and people wants to fight for.
Well, so anybody who's after that wine, I mean, it is about £50 a bottle for a half bottle.
Yeah, now probably, yes.
Do you have any go-to producers from Sicily? For me, just because I love them both. I've visited.
In general?
Yeah, for me, I love Donna Fulgata, and I also love her labels and just love all their wines. And also Planeta. I've been to see the Planeta Vineyard in Etna, and just I like that they have wines from all over, and they're both big producers but high quality. Do you have a producer or two that you'd love to recommend?
For me, the first one, and it's almost 20 years of relationship. It's Gulfi.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Good choice. Good shout.
Okay, you start to say, I don't like Nero d'Avola, or, coming back to not having experience or having, a certain preconcept about certain areas, certain regions, certain wines, and so on. And after, let's taste one of the wines that they make.
And let's see.
Wow.
Now, if you are in the mood to try some Sicilian wines, I explored over at www.wickhamwine.co.uk, so my amazing sponsors of the season. And I'm happy to say, if you want to taste those volcanic soils, they have an Etna Rosso and a Bianco. They have a Frappato, the gorgeous light-bodied grape that gives strawberry and grapey aromas. There's a Nero d'Avola and a Catarratto, so the grape most famous for its role in Marsala production, but making those lovely full-bodied lemony table wines. Now, don't forget to use my code EATSLEEP10 for 10% off your first order. And whilst drinking a bottle, if you find you are starting to dream up a trip across to this incredible island, send me a message. Either direct message me on Instagram, so at eatsleep_winerepeat, or an email, Janina at eatsleepwinerepeat.co.uk, as I visited the northern part and have a few tips, tricks, and recommendations for you that just are not going to fit into this episode. Now, next week, we continue with part 2, where we focus on another one of Beatrice's favourite wine regions, Alto Adige and Trentino, in the northeastern part of Italy. So get ready to become more familiar with the grapes of Schiava and Lagrein. Now, to finish off, as always, a quick quote for you. And considering the beauty of this island, this is a quote itself about Sicily, said by Italian businessman Renzo Barbera. He said, "On the 6th day, God accomplished his work, and pleased with all the beauty he had created, he took the earth in his hands and kissed it. There, where he put his lips, that's Sicily." I've been to many regions in Italy, and of course, each one genuinely is stunning. But I have to say, Sicily is special. It has everything. So beaches, mountains, insane wines, and the very best food, genuinely, that I've eaten across the whole of Italy. So you have to go if you haven't already. But for now, as I let you daydream about this incredible trip, may I say thank you for listening. If you are enjoying the podcast, do show your support by just leaving a quick review or a rating on the podcast app you are listening to, and screenshot the podcast and put it up on your socials to let people know about it. Wishing you all a really wonderful, successful week of wine pairings and moments of peace and tranquility. Love and light to you all. Until next week, wine friends. Cheers to you.